Welcome to Bonnie's Beat. This is your host, Bonnie Squires. We're coming to you from beautiful downtown Wayne in Radnor Studio 21. On Bonnie's Beat, we'd like to inform you about the interesting activities of your neighbors and what people are doing in politics and charitable organizations, academia, something unusual that has impact on your life. And our guest today happens to be an old friend and colleague, Andy Goldman, who is the chairman of the board of the ADL, better known as the Anti-Defamation League. Actually, it's better known as ADL, right, Andy?
Yes.
Everybody knows it. Everything is ADL here. And it happens to be the 100th anniversary, the centennial, all this year of the ADL. And there aren't too many organizations that have been around for 100 years, right, Andy?
You're right. ADL is celebrating its 100th year. It was founded in 1913 by Sigmund Livingston in Chicago. And regrettably, the reasons for its founding are still very much apparent today, although I think we're doing some better.
Well, it's interesting because the ADL, when it was founded, was an answer to anti-Semitism, which was rampant in America at that time. But it has evolved into not just a defense organization and an education organization to stamp out anti-Semitism, but the ADL works to stamp out all kinds of isms, racism, sexism, homophobia.
Very much true today. It's really, if you go on the website, adl.org, you can read the mission statement, which is a couple sentences. And the tagline at the end of the second sentence says, to secure fair treatment for all. And it's the quest to secure fair treatment that is, I think, the beauty of the organization. So it covers civil rights, it covers taking care of the little guy, and I find it to be a very noble cause.
Well, the interesting thing is, especially if a school district has a problem with bullying,
absolutely,
they call the ADL.
Bullying, the whole issue of No Place for Hate, which is a program in Philadelphia. I think there's somewhere north of 170 schools that have signed on to the program of No Place for Hate, which is tied into bullying. It's tied into the idea of having children accept differences in people. And you never know how hate starts. It's the little thing that can grow very much out of control. And we have, unfortunately, a lot of history that tells us about that.
One of the interesting programs that ADL runs, there's No Place for Hate. There are schools all around us that have signed on. And Lisa Friedlander is the staff person at ADL, does a fabulous job.
She sure does.
And in order to be designated a No Place for Hate school, it's a year-long process. You just don't go, zap, you're a no Place for Hate school. There has to be a buy-in from the faculty, the principal, the superintendent, the students, and the parents. And there has to be a series of 3 projects in the course of a year that the students do. It could be anything that they want to do. They could make a video on YouTube. They can have a special luncheon where they do mix and match, and they don't sit with their regular partners at lunch. They go find somebody new, somebody different. And the whole point is to teach people that different is just as worthy.
Differences are good. I had the good fortune of going to one of the graduations of a No Place for Hate designation at school, and I think it was a number of years ago. It was Plymouth Whitemarsh, and it was really a very moving experience to watch.
I know Lower Merion's involved. I think Harriton High School's involved. There are elementary schools. There are middle schools, and it's terrific what the kids accomplish, and it raises awareness, and especially I think it helps special needs students to be included, because that's part of the mission. You got to include everybody. You can't just cherry pick the people you want to be involved in the No Place for Hate projects.
That's right. No, it does involve everybody, and I think that what's great is, since it involves everybody, people ask questions. And out of a conversation, it's conversations that allow people to learn about differences between people. So although ADL had its founding to protect against anti-Semitism, it has in fact grown to a much larger footprint, not forgetting its Jewish roots, but encompassing more of the community.
And right after 9/11, when there was all kinds of bigotry and suspicion about Arab Americans, it was the ADL that came forward, especially on campuses, and helped them work through the bullying that was going on and the prejudice that was springing up, which was craziness, you know? So, and then nationally, the ADL moved into a cyber bullying program, because we've all read these dreadful headlines where a girl or a boy is bullied online. You know, anonymous kids spread false rumors about them, and they commit suicide. They're so overwhelmed with the stigma of what was put on the internet. It's unbelievable. So there's a very healthy program. That's the anti-cyber bullying program that the ADL puts on.
You know, taking care of the, I would say, be it the underdog or a minority, has been really a focus of the ADL through the 20th century. So since its founding in 1913, and after the lynching of Leo Frank.
Oh, there's the play that's going on right now at the Arden Theater about that horrible lynching. Because he was Jewish, he was blamed for the rape of a young girl. He was not the perpetrator.
Not at all.
But he was handy, because there was all kinds of anti-Jewish feelings in the community.
And he was pardoned after he was killed.
After he was
a number
dead.
of years later.
Yeah.
But I think that ADL has developed a staff nationally that is rather significant in number, that deal with issues in society that perpetrate hate, create safety issues relative to people's safety. So you have the whole issue of terrorism today. It's very interesting to know that the ADL is probably the #1 go-to group for their intelligence on issues of safety, whether it's the FBI, whether it's the local police force, whether it's even the CIA. The government respects the intelligence of the ADL in terms of their network to capture what's going on.
Would you talk about this amazing program with the Philadelphia Police Department and partnering with them and Chief Ramsey and taking the new graduates to Washington?
Well, this is an amazing program, and had I not overslept, I would have been on the bus. But first of all, with each graduating class of cadets for the past handful of years, part of their training is at the end of, as they become cadets, the class as a whole goes to Washington, D.C. by bus with the ADL. And the purpose is to go to the Holocaust Museum. And it's really an opportunity to focus on what happens when civil rights are ignored and what happens when hate takes over. So it's not really so much looking at it from the Holocaust perspective, but it's more of looking at what happens when hate goes unchecked and we end up taking away a little thing that goes to a bigger thing, to a bigger, and then you lose your rights. And so it's a way to train the Philadelphia police and other police forces in what should not happen and how special it is what they do. It's a way for them to have, I think it's a way to instill additional pride in each of the cadets, that what you're doing is very important and we appreciate it. That's the community for what they're doing.
And the feedback that the ADL get, I have to, in truth of that, in advertising, I have to say that I'm one of Andy's board members. And Andy, how long have you been involved with ADL?
I've probably been involved maybe 8 or 9 years. From a leadership point of view, 4 years.
Okay. But Andy and I go way back because in 1982, the Federation of Jewish Agencies sponsored what they called a Zahor mission to Israel. It was to remember and to learn. And I was representing the women's division at that time. And Andy was a sweet young thing. And I don't know if you were...
I was a leader of the mission.
He was
I
the
was
leader
one
of
of 3 leaders.
Okay. But it turns out that was like the third.
That was my second Zahor, but probably my 3rd or 4th mission, yes.
Okay. So he's been...
I was taken as a baby in 1978.
Right, as a baby.
Yeah, whatever.
It's hard to believe that it was 31 years ago that we were on
But
that
who's
trip
counting,
together.
Bonnie?
But who's counting,
Yeah,
right?
right. I'm not counting.
Anyway, but I want to say the feedback from the police cadets has been extraordinary. I mean, it was a very moving experience for them. I was there for the dedication with Elie Wiesel of the U.S. Memorial Holocaust Museum in Washington. And there were Philadelphia people involved. You know, the late, great Miles Lerman was, I think it was his idea.
Yeah, he was one of the founders, I
Yeah,
believe.
one of the founders, amazing. So, there's another way that ADL serves the wider community, and that's with dealing with Catholic school teachers and having a summer institute for them.
Fabulous, 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 fabulous program. It's called Bearing Witness. And it's a program that I actually went to Dalesford Abbey this June, I think it was, and attended a few classes for a few hours. And it's a way to have Catholics for I would say to gain a greater insight into what really happened in the Holocaust. And the idea being that they are bearing witness to what happened, and because they're in the educational system,
They're all teaching in the archdiocesan schools.
And so in the primary school, I think there are 40,000 students in the primary level, and unfortunately in the secondary level, there's somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000. But if you think about it, those teachers are gaining insights about what happened, which most of them didn't know. And
Sure, because you get a paragraph in the history book, because we're already at 2013. Some schools, they don't even get up to World War II.
So
they don't even get there.
So it's a very detailed education by priests, by rabbis, by Jewish scholars for 1 week, and it culminates in an amazing trip, actually, to the Holocaust Museum, which is like the treat, and it brings everything together. I have the Greenbergs have. I guess Joel Greenberg and Marcy Greenberg host the graduation, so to speak, of those. And for the past few summers, I've sat at tables with a Monsignor, with other officials in the church.
We have to praise the work of Sister Gloria Coleman, who years ago, under challenging circumstances, where her activities with the Jewish community were not really looked upon that favorably by whoever was the cardinal in those days, who shall remain nameless. But she carried on anyway, and she really helped ADL in creating this program.
Well, anyway, it's a wonderful program, and in speaking with a number of the Catholic educators, be they priests or others, they appreciate it. They ask a lot of questions, as do the Jewish attendees, and it's a very, very powerful bearing witness.
And then they get a chance to incorporate what they've learned into their
classroom.
curriculum.
Yeah, so in other words, think about how many lives are touched that each graduating class goes on. So if they're teaching 40,000 now in terms of primary education, so
Right.
from K to whatever, 6th grade, And that's a big reach.
And then the kids go home and ask questions of their parents because, Daddy, my teacher said, or Mommy, my teacher taught me. And then hopefully that starts a conversation in that household as well.
So, the key word, I think, and one of the things that I credit ADL with, it's the encouragement to have conversations, okay?
Right.
Because conversations implies communication. And through that communication process, people learn and they accept and they can challenge, but the importance is to keep that going.
We have to give credit to our executive director, Barry Morrison,
Unbelievable.
who lives on the main line, who's been for 25 years.
26
Oh,
years.
now it's 26 years, has been the executive director and has really led the fight. And he's the go-to guy when there's any kind of a problem in the community. The mayor, the governor, senators, congressmen, state reps, state senators, Barry's in their Rolodex.
Barry's on call 24/7,
Right.
okay? And Barry is quite an interesting person and an amazingly committed executive. He runs a regional staff, a regional office that has, including himself, 12 people. And whether you're...
And a host of devoted board members.
And absolutely a number of... look, I have very strong feelings about Barry. I credit him with helping me direct my passion in this fashion, and I don't think twice about calling him whenever if I have a question. What's interesting, he always has an answer, and the way he answers the question is oftentimes with a question, but he also is able to remarkably walk a straight line. And so you have a lot of noise on the left, you have a lot of noise on the right, but Barry works at keeping it down the middle. So I think that's a wonderful talent.
Let's find out a little bit more about Andy Goldman, because how do you incorporate your passion for the mission of ADL and other charities you're involved with into your daily life? I think you have something to do with wealth management. Is that correct?
Yep. Okay. Well,
What's the name of the firm, first of all?
Reuben Goldman and Associates, and we help our clients in legacy planning.
Is Reuben a last name or a first name?
Last. So it's Reuben Goldman as one name.
Okay.
Reuben Goldman and Associates.
Who's the Reuben?
Andy Reuben, who also...
Another Andy?
Yeah. So when we were thinking about... We've been together for almost 17 years. And when we first got together, we were thinking in terms of something that could convey wealth and our touch in that world. So our website is rubgold.com.
I love it, rubgold.com. Oh, that's terrific.
So, I mean, we thought about Andy's R Us, but we thought that was playing to a different audience.
And you didn't want to go 2 A's because there's a 3 A's, right?
Right, but we have a third A as a partner.
Oh,
We
really?
have a younger partner by the name of Adam Holt, who's a star.
So you are also 3 A's.
We
I
are
love it.
3 A's, okay? But we don't do a lot of road work, okay?
You can't fix my battery,
I
right?
mean, in today's world of high tech and high touch, we do a lot of go-to meetings, but we don't do road work. In any event, so how did I get involved? And there's a lot. I spent my work is involved in helping people decide what to do with their success and how to maximize the dollars that they've created and have accumulated.
And your wife is a good partner in that effort, right?
My wife is an unbelievable
She puts
partner.
up with you.
She puts up with me.
Margie puts
yeah.
up with you, so she gets a
Yeah.
gold star.
Yeah, she gets more than that. But in any event, I think the idea of helping people plan, you get into conversations with clients. So there is an opportunity at times. People may see that I'm excited about something. They want to know what I'm doing. So it's an opportunity to talk about what I'm doing. Where that goes, I don't know. But I always, and I credit a former partner of mine, Mark Solomon, with getting me involved in the community, whether it's the Jewish community, the United Way, greater community, but I very...
The education community.
Yeah, yeah. So
Mark Solomon.
his phrase, which was, it's better to be a farmer than a miner. So rather to plant as opposed to take. And so to the extent
I like that.
Yeah, well, I don't take credit for it. I like to give him and Paul Silberberg, a former partner of mine, credit. But I enjoy being a farmer, and to the extent, you know, I've had a good run on things, and I enjoy what I do. So to the extent I have the opportunity to give back, I like to do that. And so ADL I mean, I think ADL is, my hope with ADL, Bonnie, were you to ask me, so I'm taking the liberty, assuming that you're asking me that, is that I want to see a greater engagement of the corporate community with ADL.
I was just leading to that. There have been a number of corporations that have partnered with the ADL for the No Place for Hate and other projects. As a matter of fact, the ADL gives out an Americanism Award every year. What's the date this year? It's November something. I can't remember the date.
November 12th, I think?
I think it's November 12th. You're right.
I think it is.
Yes.
And we're honoring TD Bank and Michael Carbone. And Michael Carbone is an interesting young executive who is the regional head of TD Bank. And there is very little that he doesn't do, is the fact. He's extremely involved in the community, in many different venues. But as the person who has been picked to be honored for this Americanism Award, he takes it extremely seriously, and his engagement with ADL has been remarkable, absolutely remarkable. So ADL has two major fundraising events, one of which is called Americanism, the dinner in November, and then in the spring we have the Walk Against Hate. And he
on the Riverside Drive.
Yes.
Martin Luther King Drive.
Yes.
Appropriately enough.
And it's amazing. And this year, it's May 18th, and last May when we had it, it rained. It rained all day. And in spite of the rain, we had nearly 2,000 people. The exact number is somewhere between north of 1,600. But Mr. Carbone brought over 200 of his people.
Oh my
and they
goodness.
all had the green, they all had the same shirt on, and it was amazing. And he spoke, and he addressed.
It's funny, just by coincidence.
You have a TD
My
Bank.
band is a TD Bank.
So Michael has not only put his heart on the table, but he's put his time, and he's very committed, and he likes ADL. He thinks it's a noble mission.
We've been lucky through the years because there have been a number of really civic-minded corporate leaders like Bill Mills, PNC Bank, Bill Sasso,
Pico.
Stradley Ronan, the Pico, the Verizon. You know, there's so many.
So yes, you're right, and a number of corporate Philadelphia have come out, and they have both given their time and money. And
if you want to see what an ad book's supposed to look like, you have to get a copy of the ADL ad book. It weighs about 5 pounds. The ads are just astonishing. I mean, I save all of them, especially Joey Zaritsky, Parkway Parking, when Joey was honored. Oh my God, it was like the telephone directory.
Well, that's terrific, okay? And it's to be able to translate that commitment into a continuous commitment, and I want to be a part of, is what I hope we can continue to do.
Well, the nice thing about the corporate piece is that people like Carbone and Bill Mills and others, they ask their employees to volunteer with the various schools, with the various projects, the walk, and they get involved. They encourage participation in community activities. So.
Well, actually, Carbone, I don't recall the name of the school, but he took, he went with a number of his executives and people to an elementary school and read to the kids. So there is you know, and so he's leading by example. And it's that idea of participation in our community that's so important. So I'd like to throw it back and say, that's great. That's a great example for other wonderful corporations to do. And I think it's great.
Everybody can spare an hour in a month's time to do some volunteer work.
Absolutely.
Right? Of course, you spare an hour to do your professional work, and the other 23 hours are devoted to ADL.
Whatever, you know. Anyway.
There's a long line of leadership for the Anti-Defamation League, the Southeast region.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is, when the presidents pass the gavel on, like Judith Mondre and some others, there have been women presidents of ADL, not many, but there have been a few, and there's some women on the board.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely.
But after they finish their term as president, they're there.
They stay on.
They come to everything.
They stay engaged, and we have. So I'm chairman, but I have wonderful vice chairmans who help in getting the message across, and then we have an executive committee of some 25 people. So I would say, from a policy-making point of view, that body is what does a lot of the work. And we have a number of, we have Joan Parker, who is an arbitrator, and Judy Myers, who similarly does arbitration and is an attorney, and Hope Comiskey. And these are three, in particular, women who are very much involved in the executive committee and helping provide input for me as well as the greater community of ADL.
I assume you're going to participate in the National Centennial Celebration in New York in November.
Thank you for bringing that up. I absolutely am. It's called the Commission. So the Commission meets annually. It's October 29th or 30th through November 1st. So yes, I'll be up in New York. We also have a dinner on the 29th down the shore at the JCC.
The Katz JCC in Margate.
Correct.
And Abe Foxman, we can't talk about ADL without talking about the National Executive Director, Abe Foxman, who's an author, who's politically savvy, who is a favorite on MSNBC and CNN and even Fox. You know, when they want information about the Middle East, about racism, about anti-Semitism, they call on Abe Foxman to represent all the ADL chapters in America.
Well, and he walks with presidents of.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And kings.
Absolutely. So Abe is the keynote speaker at the Stanger event. So Doug Stanger and his wife Gail are being honored. He's on the executive committee of ADL, and they're being honored the night of the 29th. Abe is the keynote speaker. And yes, I will be there.
Anyway, our guest today has been Andy Goldman, who is the current chair of the Anti-Defamation League, and a good friend and a good soul. And thank you for stopping by,
Bonnie.
Andy.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you very much.
We'll see you next week.